Red 2 standing by, all 4 lit and in the green. Welcome back to Legend of Zelda the Minish Cap. We are covering the Stage 2 and Stage 3 Kinstone Fusions in this episode. They have been put into their assigned order rather than the order I recorded them in, so it's going to be a mess as far as chronology goes. It took a long time to edit things, and I wasted a lot of time going to the wrong spots and doing things in strange order, but we got there eventually. So we are kicking things off with a fusion back in Hyrule Town. You can fuse Kinstones with kids as well. You might recognise them from hanging around with the hurdy-gurdy man right at the start. So once we get this, we will have a shoal opening up in the Trilby Highlands. Some of these will appear and they will lead to those secret caves. You can dig into them with the mole mitts, as you might have guessed, but this one you're not going to be able to access. Not just yet anyway. As always, I will be putting the actual fusion and the rewards on screen so that we can sort of keep track of things. Fusing with the postman, I didn't do that last time, but we're actually getting around to it now. This one is pretty much completely optional. So we see Stamp working away at the post office, and he decides to start a newsletter. This is your hint service, which I actually haven't covered. I thought I was going to, but eventually didn't because I have a fairly good memory about the game. Anyway, if you head in here, you'll be able to talk to Marcy. Stamp will still say something similar, but Marcy will sign you up to the Swordsman newsletter. It's written by Swiftblade. There are some errors which I probably should actually cover in a post-game episode. 200 rupees, and you can get new ones at different points in the game. Now, interesting to note, because the order is listed differently, David Jr. comes up as the first one in the list, even though you will need to fuse with and talk to Tingle first. He's the odd one out of the Tingle siblings. They do actually have question marks. Anyway, those 4 unremarkable trees in the middle of North Hyrule Field actually lead to secret caves. When you fuse Kinstones, they'll open up. Head on inside and grab some rewards. Now, you will note that some things I've done are a little bit out of place. This was because while I was recording everything, for some reason the actual video decided to glitch out and put things in the wrong spot, or just show screens that were a few seconds ahead when I actually paused something in certain spots. So it was a pain in the backside. We eventually got there as far as editing went. Now, of the Tingle siblings, the only one you can't fuse with in Stage 2 is Knuckle. You will find him later on because you actually need the mole mitts to access him. But once you find Ankle, you will get the second one of those gateways that lead to the magic boomerang. It can be a particularly useful item. It's entirely optional, as is the regular boomerang, but it will come in handy along the way. So let's head in and grab our stuff. As you can see, I did some things in slightly different order. So down here we go, and David Jr.'s will lead you to 200 mysterious shells. The rest of them are Kinstone pieces, and once again I do apologise for things being a little bit out of kilter when it comes to displaying the text on the screen because of the problems I had while actually editing things, and I couldn't really fix it. I think I did things a pretty cack-handed way. Anyway, when you fuse with Malari, he will comment on the craftsmanship of your Kinstone Fusion, and it will also be a good introduction to growing beanstalks. I've mentioned these before, but they'll grow in different areas around the game, leading to the top of the clouds and some pretty good treasure. This is right at the top of the world map, pretty much high northwest corner. So we scale Crenell Wall slowly. I don't know why I added so much footage of me doing that. Come on past me, great idea. Come on, climb, climb. I thought I'd cut out a bit more than this, but anyway, we make it up there. And we can head right up that beanstalk. Our reward in this case is a bit of money and one of our heart pieces. And there we go, at least that one turned up in order. This was where things wound up going a bit wrong when it came to editing, but it's mostly gone smoothly. You will be able to get some more Kinstone Fusions done in Malari's Mines. I also managed to pick up the reward for Kinstone Fusion 36, which I showed you in episode 9. This one's back in the Rainy Path, right at the top of Mount Crenel's eastern side. So jump over, enjoy the music from A Link to the Past, and head on into the rainstorm. I don't know why you don't get hurt when you're wandering around outside, in all fairness. I think I got hit by the raindrops a couple of times. You do take literal splash damage in this case. So once we've picked up that, there's the reward for Fusion 36, another blue Kinstone piece. There's also somewhere we can get heart pieces later, as we saw, but this is the last fusion you'll need up in Malari's Mines. Make that, and I think this one is also a blue Kinstone piece. It can be found at the hot spring where you get the Crenel hot spring water. That is actually fairly obvious. What are you talking about, you idiot? So just head on over there, shrink down, and run through the Minish Road. Pretty easy. I'm adding all of this as sort of a visual guide in a sense, just in case people need refreshers. Nice use of the roll attack. I'm showing off a little bit there. We make our way and dodge the rocks. Blue Kinstone piece once more. So if you use the Gust Jar near the second of those portals you find, you can get another fusion that actually pops up nearby. Fuse with this forest Minish and you will get a chest. You can just basically head over to near where we found one of the earlier heart pieces, and this nets you 200 rupees. Not too shabby, all things considered, really. If you're running a bit short on money, this one can be very handy. So yeah, just close by. I looted the guy's house for good measure too. He's given us plenty of money and we've stolen his Kinstone piece, so duck down there and get back to normal size. You will need to use the Gust Jar to proceed past those weird spiky things. I still haven't worked out exactly what they're meant to be. So clear those out of the way, and there it is, just over there. Pretty easy to get in all fairness, except I'm taking my time. Unfortunately, you can't stun enemies with the Gust Jar, as I have pointed out. In fact, what do you think are some of the more practical uses for items in this game? Probably don't show up, and that's really sad. Of course, after beating up an Octorok to make a point, and me being a perfectionist wanting to have full health pretty much all the time, we can actually head back home. You can see Tingle up there. He was briefly on screen for a little bit, and we will be able to fuse with our grandfather. Eslo will also have some dialogue about our house. If you head upstairs, you can also see something hidden under the table. We don't actually get to find out what it is, and, of course, if you go to sleep, Eslo will be sitting next to you, keeping alongside you. So make this particular fusion, and this one will actually net us a bottle. That's a pretty good fusion to make, in all fairness. Very handy to have. And it's really not far from your house, just sitting there in Eastern Hills. So we will quickly run off and grab that, and then we can pop back and talk to our grandfather again. So dodge the Acro Bandits on the way back and take them out just because I can. And if I don't get distracted, where am I going? I'm going an odd way. But we can make it back and do another fusion. This one only requires a green Kinstone piece, so it's a bit easier to do. The red ones can often be hard to find, and that pops up later on, because oh boy, there was a doozy trying to get one of the later Kinstone fusions done. So, fuse once again with Smith, and we will be able to pick up a red Kinstone piece in the Trilby Highlands. Not too far from where that shoal appeared. This can come in pretty handy. It's almost like a refund in a sense. And here he is. It's time to fuse with Tingle. This will be required so we can do the fusions with Ankle, Knuckle and David Jr. Tingle will have a second fusion in stage 3, as will David Jr. So thankfully this one is just an easy green piece. You'll have found a lot of those around the place. You can talk to Tingle later on. He's much less, well, annoying in this game, and that's why also, just to divert a little bit, that's the first one that's open, so that's why you could see that David Jr.'s wasn't open, but this particular one was when I showed off Ankles. So there we are 3/4 of the way to the magic boomerang. Knuckle will generally be the last one, so if you do keep up with everything, don't forget to talk to Tingle, you will be able to get the magic boomerang as soon as you get the Ocarina of Wind. Now, at Lake Hylia, you'll be able to find this pretty easily. I think you can get there by going, by using the Ocarina of Wind is probably the easiest way. But shrink down and fuse with Stockwell's dog Borkin. You'll recognise where this place is if you've done the side quest to feed Borkin and get the bottle. Note that Borkin is called Fifi in some versions. You will be able to get a Kinstone Fusion that triggers in Lake Hylia. You can't get it unless you have the Mole Mitts. If you dig through the Mole Mitts cave near Syrup's hut, you can shrink down and enter the Minish Road here. Use the Gust Jar to propel this along, have a nice merry cruise with nothing interrupting you, and you can make your way down to the jetty to get that piece. We will also be going here as part of a later side quest to open up the Temple of Droplets. Also keep in mind, Link can't jump across that gap. But draw it in with the Gust Jar and away we go. So, over here in Trilby Highlands is Percy, the Poet Laureate of Hyrule. I don't think he's a very good poet if I'm going to be honest, because his verse seems fairly simplistic. But I suppose you don't really need deep and incomprehensible poetry in a game that is a little bit more geared towards kids. Interestingly, he does mention losing a Kinstone piece in the inn, but you'll get random Kinstone pieces staying in the inn at Hyrule Town. I keep trying to call it Castle Town. Anyway, fuse with Percy and you'll open up the way to his house in the Western Woods. Fusions can make those trees stand up and spring to life again. They kind of look like they've bent down like they're some sort of inflatable that has run out of air. And once we head down to Western Wood, we'll just take a nice leisurely stroll and avoid some moblins. We'll be able to get to Percy's house. There are actually no rewards just yet. We can access Percy's house, but that's not going to do us very much good, as we're about to see. I nearly got stuck on a tree there. Poor old Percy is freaking out because someone has broken into his house. So he's panicking a bit. He seems to put his feelings to verse constantly. At least the guy's got dedication for poetry. Anyway, this strange lady is in his house. You can't do anything about her until you have the lantern. So, over in Eastern Hills is the next one. Shrink down and head over to this fusion here. This will trigger a beanstalk. Worth noting that this area is just outside the lower exit of Minish Woods, the one near Minish Village. The bombable wall is still intact in that picture for some reason. Up goes our beanstalk, and once again we will be able to climb up to the heavens. We'll get some pretty good rewards out of these in all fairness. Actually, growing those beanstalks does get you some pretty neat stuff. So, since it's not too far, we'll just take a happy little tour. Really not too far away in all fairness, avoid those beetles, and up we go. Pretty nice music when you actually climb into the into these cloud areas, but yeah, that text was a little bit off in terms of timing on account of the video glitching a bit, so either way, 200 rupees, a heart piece and 200 mysterious shells, not too shabby. into the castle gardens for the next one. Drop down the little hole here. There is absolutely no point to going over to the left-hand side while Minish sighs, just to scout ahead. Perform this one, and the reward will be, drumroll please, admittedly I didn't keep track of everything, we can dig up 400 rupees when this tree comes back to life. Certain patches of ground will actually yield little goodies when you use the mole mitts. Quite handy in all fairness, kind of like how you could use the shovel to dig up various places in the Oracle games and indeed Link's Awakening. Sadly, this is a one-time only. I mean, it wouldn't be too bad if you could grind for money. Anyway, this particular stage must be done after you've fused with Furore. Fusing with Bremor once you have a specific piece will allow a second house to be built. That way you will be able to get a second charm in your bottles. We'll introduce you to the oracles and their specific charms shortly after as we cover Furore's fusion. So, you can only choose 2 of the oracles. A third house will be speculated, but it will not be built. Mostly because there needs to be a side quest area. Now talk to Gorman, who is wearing an Elizabethan ruff for some reason. I suppose it was a bit more pronounced, maybe a bit less pronounced in Majora's Mask, but anyway. Head back to the inn and you can speak to one of the oracles, Din, Naru or Furore. When you talk to them, they will be able to wind up renting one of the houses. So in this particular case, I wound up choosing Din and Furore. The oracle that remains will be stuck at the inn. So you kick it off by fusing with Furore. She is usually the one who gets left out of finding a house because her charm is not quite as useful as the other two. It gives a 1.5 times boost to attack and defense, while Naru's doubles defense and Din's doubles attack, kind of like the blue ring and the red ring. I can't remember what the green ring did, if there was one. I think there was one in the Oracle games. It's been a while. So you can put one of their charms in a bottle at a time and use it whenever you need to. This can be very handy for approaching the final boss. Now it's interesting that Furore mentions, well, her figurine actually mentions that people take advantage of her kind nature, and that drives her nuts, especially since she's the one you have to fuse with in order to kick off this side quest. Note that Gorman is only renting to one woman, single occupancy. He's extremely finicky, and I reckon it's kind of sus that he's only insisting on renting to young ladies. Something's up with that guy. Anyway, you can talk to one of the oracles. You'll also be able to fuse kinstones with all of them later, so you'll find them at the inn or at their respective houses. So Furore got a house this time. Sadly, Naru got left out, but usually it's Furore who gets left out. Anyway, we do have to skip over a few things because we can't quite get to them just yet. Fusing with Mama actually raises a shoal at Lake Hylia, which we can't get to because we don't have the flippers. Once we're able to swim, which will be coming up in following episodes, we will be fine. But until then, we will have to wait for a lot of things that basically we'll need some sort of aquatic exploration for. Anyway, Stage 3 fusion with David Jr. So we'll also be able to fuse with Tingle, but his is much later in the list. Now, I didn't get this particular chest just yet. I was screaming at myself to go and do it, and I don't think it showed up in my recording. So anyway, that is near Malari's mine. If we visit Lake Hylia, we'll note that there's a Minish we can fuse with. I was a bit stuck on where one of the fusions is, but we had to skip over it because we actually need the flippers. So, fuse with this Minish. Note the disappearance of that particular type of kinstone piece because that caused problems. Anyway, in Western Wood, the tree that had the thorns guarding it will be opened up. Just like the one you make with the hurdy-gurdy man, there's a heart piece inside. So that covers all the new heart pieces we collected as part of this. Now you can fuse a couple more times with Zill. I think this can be done with Forest Minish as well, but Zill seems to be the easiest one because he's in a pretty easy to find spot. Anyway, fusing it with him 3 times in all will trigger lily pads appearing in Castle Wilds. Once you have the flippers, I do recommend having them because you will need to navigate past some puddles. You will be able to get to a heart piece. So yeah, I've messed up a little bit on my editing. I think I was a bit tired when I did that, so yeah. That's Fusion 56. If you've been following all the episode guides, 56 total fusions out of 100, not too bad. 9 of them are story fusions. So, you may remember that we opened up a doorway to a room where a business scrub will sell us Kinstone pieces in Minish Woods. You can perform 2 Kinstone fusions with this particular business scrub. Now, I didn't go and get this particular reward, so I haven't mentioned what it is just yet. I decided to go and get that once I could actually get the heart piece. So I'll just have to keep you in suspense for a little bit. But go in and form the second fusion. I didn't actually have to fight him that time. And once again, drumroll please, our reward is a golden Octorok in Western Woods. So this will net you 100 rupees and you get to see me fighting it as well. I'm not bad at fighting them in all fairness. They are fairly easy to defeat. The moblins around will give a bit more trouble on account of the fact they can't really be knocked out of their attacks very easily, and they do 1 whole heart compared to the Octorok, which only does 1/4 of a heart each time. Now, the next bit. Do you remember that fusion I made to get the heart piece in Western Woods, in that tree blocked by vines? When I did that, that was the last of those Kinstone pieces I had, and Greyblade, who you must fuse with next, needed that. So I had to use a lot of save states to try and get the right Kinstone pieces. Needless to say, I did not get the right one, so I had to reset and try again. That is one of the perks of the Virtual Console version, that you can reset and try again. So, we wind up buying another one. It's a red Kinstone piece. This is good. It's the wrong one. This is bad. It seems like we're getting the same one. So, what I did was step out and step inside just in case it was set, depending on when you entered. So, we wind up getting another random Kinstone piece. This can be handy, but you'll wind up getting the wrong one a lot of times, especially if you're looking for a specific one. So, I went and decided to grind with Piccolite. Now, needless to say, I did not find very many, and they were almost inevitably the wrong one. I didn't need any green pieces at this point. So, once again, didn't get any. I blew most of my money on that, as you can probably see. This, fortunately, can be picked up once you've done 3 fusions for the bottle quest. Well, 4 in all honesty. 200 rupees, I do actually note that later on. So, once we grabbed ourselves a little bit of money, I went back to Hyrule Town, I got myself Piccolite, and I started using save states once again to try and find what I needed. Lots of hacking, slashing, cutting, failing, but we finally got it. It took me 20 minutes to find that. 1 in 8 shot, basically. A 1 in 3 shot if I pick up a red Kinstone piece. 20 minutes. And I made it to Greyblade's dojo and finally was able to fuse Kinstone pieces with him. Heavens, that was frustrating. Anyway, once I got that done, this opens a waterfall in Castle Wilds. This will allow us to go and train with Scarblade. We will find out what that does later on. So, if you want to access Lake Hylia early, even though we can't swim, this is our Mole Mit's cave. Dig through this and you will be able to get there pretty easily. And, of course, there is a mysterious wall in here. Perform one of our Kinstone Fusions for the bottle side quest, and once again, we will have more Gorons. Away they go. This was actually the last one for the time being, because the final one cannot be accessed until I have the Rocks Cape. So they're still punching along manfully. I am pretty convinced that Gorons are essentially the Zelda version of testosterone poisoning, because there always seems to be a fairly strong patriarchy. So basically might as well make everything look completely ridiculous and just don't go overboard with the manliness thing for pure laughs. Which I might do if I do another Zelda Let's Play, who knows. Anyway, North Hyrule Field, another tree we can knock down with the Pegasus boots, and another fusion. Plenty of Minish to fuse with. We're getting closer to the end of Stage 3, thankfully. Still a bit of a way to go. And this one will reveal a chest in the Wind Ruins. Thankfully, we can access the entirety of Caster Wilds and Wind Ruins pretty easily. So just through here is our chest, which contains 200 mysterious shells. I think I had already maxed things out then. In South Hyrule Field, this fusion, again, the pause thing messed up, so I couldn't quite put things in the right spot when it comes to the editing text. Sorry about that. This will trigger the red potion at Syrup's hut. You'll recognize Syrup because she appears in Link's Awakening and I believe the Oracle games as well. Her apprentice Maple appears in the Oracle games too. So, red potion is our full health restorative. Fairly handy to have, and you will need it for the Picolite side quest. Keep it on hand. Go back and fuse with Tingle again, and he decides that he wants to kill you. Because his Kinstone Fusion, note that I did this a lot earlier than the fusion with Greyblade, Tingle provides us with a golden Tektite up at Mount Cronel, just near Malari's mines. These are a pain in the backside, and I'm pretty sure they can predict where you're moving. So, this hyper-energetic adversary should be stunned with the boomerang. The magic boomerang can be directed. Once you finally actually manage to stun the blasted thing, stun lock it and attack it. This one's different because you'll actually get 200 rupees out of it. Not too bad, but it's still not worth all the aggravation. Maybe some of it, but not all of it. Now, near Knuckle is a forest Minish. Fuse with this little guy. And our reward is a fairly simple draining of a pond in the Trilby Highlands. This will net you 75 rupees in a one-time only deal. Those are a bit of a nuisance. Some of them should at least be respawning, so you've got a slow but effective money grinding spot, especially given you have to deal with the absolute horror of the stupid figurine quest later on. And given how much money you need for that, wasn't looking forward to that. Anyway, rack up a little bit of money, and out we go. So, of course, in the Mole Mit's cave that you can actually access in Trilby Highlands, you will make it to Knuckle, and you will be able to perform the fusion. This will generally be the last one, unless you wind up just exploring in a different fashion. But once you've done this, you should be able to access the magic boomerang. Head down here, get our last red Kinstone piece, and once we step on that switch, the ladder drops. There we are, there's our reward. Climb back up, go outside, and you'll see that ladder. Head down there, and one magic boomerang. Well, magical boomerang. So, it appeared in this fashion in Oracle of Seasons. Otherwise, it would just sort of basically go a bit further. This was the case in the original Zelda and A Link to the Past, for example. Now, in that same Molmitz cave you used to access Knuckle and the Forest Minish just before this is another mysterious wall. This was the fourth one I did. So, it'll break down the second wall. So yeah, once again, this whole thing is a bit of an anachronistic jumble, but we made it in the end. So it all depends on which order you do things, because these walls can kick things off, Eni can kick things off, but either way, all 6 fusions connected to this will eventually advance the bottle side quest. Now, I'm not sure why having 4 of them just magically makes this barrier break down. They can't just chip away at things over time. I don't know, plot advancement or something. So, another fusion. Come on. Are we actually... There we go. Sometimes past me takes a little while to do things. This one's in Western Wood, I believe. Yep, it triggers the magic beanstalk right nearby. This one doesn't actually lead to a heart piece. I think you get a red Kinstone piece and a lot of money. See, a lot of the beanstalks are actually fairly easy to get. Out we go, back to size. Now, when I did a first playthrough to practice this, for some reason that beanstalk had a weird tendency to glitch out. I have to kill the moblin out of principle, and there's money. And up the beanstalk we go. Climb to the clouds once again. And a fair amount of money and the Kinstone piece. Once again, one-time only deal on the money. In Wind Ruins, there's a fairly easy fusion to make another beanstalk. Now, once we make this, we will actually be able to get a quiver upgrade. So obviously, this one's going to be available after we get the bow. So you can actually pick this up at pretty much any time. You can get a quiver upgrade from a fairy, and you can buy one from Stockwell's shop as well as this. Scale the beanstalk and you will find your prize up on the clouds. I will also demonstrate that around this time, you will be able to buy the quiver from Stockwell. Basically just head into town. With all the money you've earned, 600 rupees for that, you will need the biggest wallet. Should be a breeze, and if you're running short on money, you can easily just grind it. That pretty much brings things to a close. Oh, hang on. So yeah, I used this because this was pretty much the last fusion I did. I used this as our ending slate, basically. We've had a lot of work. We've done plenty of Kinstone fusing, and we're ready to continue the adventure with a couple more fusions from Stage 3 and heading on to the next part of the game. Thank you very much for joining me. We will need to get into the library. Until next time, this is Red 2, returning to base.